Yeah, you doing? Um, Today I'm going to be reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, verses 57 through 66. And before I jump into it, I almost forgot to say happy and merry Christmas Eve, right on the edge of Christmas. I don't know what that means for you. For some people, that's a moment of happiness. It's a moment of weary, and it's a moment of fear or disgust. Wherever you may be this day, may you have a happy day. I will be praying for you. So, when the time arrived for Elizabeth to have her child, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown his great mercy toward her, and they rejoiced with her. When they came on the 8th day to circumcise the child, they were going to call him Zachariah after his father, but his mother said in reply, "No, he will be called John." But they answered her, "There is no one among your relatives who has that name." So they made signs asking his father what he wished him to be called. He asked for a tablet and wrote, "John is his name." And all were amazed. Immediately his mouth was open, his tongue was freed, and he spoke, blessing God. Then fear came upon all their neighbors, and all these matters were discussed throughout the hill country of Judea. All who heard these things took them to their hearts, saying, "What then will this child be? For surely the hand of the Lord was with him." This is one of those short readings where there's a lot going on, and you know, uh, I first liked the idea that when the neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had finally given little Elizabeth a child, they rejoiced with her. This is someone who was very old and had been barren for quite some time, and they rejoiced with her over a child. It's funny because I have 6 kids, and it's funny how many times I'll be out in public and I'll have somebody approach me or my wife, and they'll say, "Don't you know what causes that?" Or when I um, talk to people about my children, they're like, "Oh, 6. I couldn't imagine. Oh, like it's a curse or something." I absolutely love my children. I love every single one of them. I don't know why it seems that when we talk about children in current culture, it seems like it's such a bad thing, or such something that restricts your freedom. And I suppose in a way it does, but in a way it also frees me up because my children draw things out of me that I would probably not be able to draw out on my own. They're unique gifts from God that way. The other thing that I thought was kind of funny when I read this, and I'm an amateur. Okay, I'm an amateur. I have not gone to school for theology or anything, but when they came to the 8th day to circumcise the child, they were going to call him Zechariah, and Mom was like, "No," so they go to Dad, and they made signs asking him what the child should be called. Now, I find this particularly funny because, as far as I know, Zachariah was not deaf. He was just mute. So if it was me and I was Zachariah and I was truly had my hearing and all these people are bringing me signs, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh." I don't know. It's just a little bit of the comedy that I see in Scripture sometimes, because I think, God is a God of joy. He's often known as wrathful and merciful and compassionate, but funny, not so much. So this is a line that kind of makes me laugh. It's like, "Oh gosh, you guys are so stupid. I can hear fine. I just can't speak." But but the fact is that after that, the next thing that really catches my eye is that when Zachariah says, "No, we're going to call him John," His tongue is freed, and he can speak, and the first thing he does is he praises God. There are many times I've reached obstacles in my life, and I gotta think back, and I'll have to be honest, that a lot of times the first thing I do after something really great goes my way, I don't bless God. And that kind of checks me. Because really, in my perspective, the fact that I woke up this morning, the fact that my heart is beating and I have air in my lungs, I have the ability to speak, the fact that I sit in America, I have a great job, and I have a wonderful family, those are all gifts given to me by God. I work very hard, but I am blessed by God because I have 2 hands, 2 arms, 2 legs that work very well. And it just makes me realize that I don't bless God enough. And here Zechariah, once he gets his ability to speak back, first thing he does is he blesses God because he's followed God's will. And that's kind of interesting too. Sometimes you follow God's will and it seems like the world just comes down on you. And you're just kind of dismissed and people kind of mock you and make fun of you. I remember when I was in school a long time ago, when I was it was either it was probably junior high. I was in junior high. And one of the other students caught me praying. I was admonished quite heavily that I couldn't pray. I wasn't making a spectacle of it. I just had my hands clasped, my head down, and I was praying. It was very obvious, but I wasn't making a spectacle. It wasn't like, I'm going to pray now. And I was trying to force my faith on everyone else. But I was admonished rather heavily for praying. And it kind of threw me back, and it kind of brought pause to me. But the fact of the matter is I find it in life when I decide to walk away from God's teachings of loving and accepting others, and to open my heart so that I may become stronger and more virtuous. Those are the times I become more free. I remember one time when I was in this particular band, after we had got done performing, this woman walked up to us and she was like, "Are you Christian?" And it was because we played heavy metal and we were wearing suits. And I was, one of my bandmates looked at me and said, "Well, I'm not, but he is." And she looked at me and she said, "Well, Christianity just makes you a slave," and turned around and walked off. And I kind of chuckled at that, and it was one of those moments in life where I wish I had the ability to go back in time and speak compassionately, because I wasn't mad at all. But what I find so interesting is that people think that God and following Christ it's about turning you into a slave and restricting your ability. And I don't believe that, As a musician, what makes me more free as a musician? I know for years I didn't want to take lessons and I just wanted to teach myself how to play and I wanted to do it my own way. The problem is I did create some music, and some people would more likely just call it noise. But it wasn't until I started learning chords and some basic rudimentary ideas on theory that I started to make music that was actually palatable to the ear. And at least some people's ears. But, that's the thing, it's like you learn the principles of playing an instrument so that you can do it well, so then you can have the freedom to take the music that's in your mind and put it out through your instrument. Much like Christianity, the idea of, following God's commandments and partaking in His covenant teaches you how to live in the world so that when you go out, you can live truly free and truly happy. Elsewise, you become addicted to vices, and you're not truly free. You may feel free because you have moments of pleasure here and there, but you are not truly free. So, the ending question that I always like to ask, how is this going to change my day? Well, I think I need to turn back to God. I think life during this Advent season has been very busy, and I always get frustrated during Advent because I'm always so busy. I think I need to try to be less busy. I think I need to focus on God's way. I think I need to show my appreciation to God more on a regular basis. I think today I'm going to try to go to church and sit in the quiet and open my heart to Him and hear what God has to say for me, what He has. And then I'm going to come home and I'm going to try to be quiet and calm and open my heart up to my beautiful wife and children and see how I can be a better husband and a better father, because Christ did not come to serve or to be served, but to serve. So as Christ being my hero and my example, I'm going to go forward and see how I can serve others. I don't know. That's all I got to say about that.